Okay, so I would like to share how I process color film when Capture One's Convert Negative lets me down. Don't get me wrong, Capture One Convert Negative is really good. It usually does as good of a job as I can do by hand, and in fact, sometimes it even does a better job. But there are times where it lets me down. And so I have developed this process that lets me nail it for sure, though it is a little more time consuming. So if you would like to know how to fix your color for your color negative in this situation, you can see how I do it. So I have selected some photos that are kind of a random array of different colors or situations. So let's start with this one. This is one that I know that Convert Negative doesn't nail, doesn't get it quite right. So let's just start with the Convert Negative. So to start though, this was scanned the appropriate way as outlined by Capture One's Convert Negative procedure, which is basically get this as bright as you can without blowing it out. For more details on that, you can check out their website. All right, so we white balance it. We crop out everything but the juicy data bits. And I'm going to clone it here because we're also going to do the same thing the hard way. So now let's click Convert Negative, and here's what we got. It is not bad, but it's also very warm. But not just warm, it's yellow. So we can try to fix it, trying to adjust the white balance when the white balance was really set by the film itself is kind of, a crapshoot. We can we can play with it a little, but it doesn't quite come out right. For reference, this is Kodak Gold, I believe I'm shooting. This was a Pentax 6.7. Yeah. So anyway, let's not tinker with it too much. Let's leave it as it was converted by Convert Negative. Let's do the same thing my way. And of course, my way takes more effort. So we'll give Capture One Convert Negative some effort as well, but let's come back to that. So to start, we already cropped it down to the juicy bits of the data. We already white balanced it. Okay, so now here's the funny part. So we do use Film Negative. This is a nice, based on my exploring of the tool, I believe that Film Negative is just a auto magic inversion of the curves with some bias towards bringing things more into tune with film. But I think it's 90% of the magic is just in the curve. Because when I do this, when I used to do my own color conversion before we got Film Negative, I could get pretty similar results by mostly manipulating the curve. So that's my guess, but it really doesn't matter. Okay, so here's the shot as it's, just flipping to Film Negative. Now, important thing to do here is to you want to get your exposure into the right range. Not for, hey, this looks correctly exposed, but rather the data. So another thing I'm going to do is I don't want to try to white balance for sky and shadow and all this. So I'm going to try to trim this down to the area I primarily care about, which It's usually excluding the sky. And then I can go back and tweak the sky by hand later, and that's works out pretty well. So here's the data that I really care about. Or at least I care about all of it, but this is just a good sample of the data that I care about. So, so you'll also see that that eliminated a lot of the junk from the long tail ends of the histogram, which was primarily in the sky or some random highlight bits. So this is the bulk of it. So now we want to get the exposure somewhere around where we have some like middle ground here. So it looks like one stop is about right. So once we've done that, now this is where it gets funny. We're literally going to be treating this histogram as data. So don't even look at the colors here. They don't matter yet. What we want to do first is normalize the 3 color channels because we're getting biased color channels because of the emulsion color. So we need to like the white balance tool on the emulsion wasn't enough. So okay. Also, once we've got this white balance on the emulsion, we just don't want to touch that anymore. That's like out of the picture. At the tail end, maybe we can tinker just a tiny bit, but let's not talk about that yet. Okay, so here's where it gets funny. We want to move the data into a normalized place. So I always start with the green channel, and what we want to do is move the green channel such that it sits right in the middle of these 2 zones of the curves histogram. So slide these over, and sometimes you have to slide the bottom ones, sometimes you have to slide the top ones. It just depends on, you know, whether you overexposed the shot or underexposed. Okay, so I'm ignoring these tiny bits because that's likely just highlights that we're going to account for later. So something like this. You can also look at it here if you just want the green channel, but I like to look at them all together because it helps me to line them up. This is really important. It's really important that we get the min and max, or the left and right, should be aligned. We don't really care about the middle of the data, the middle of the channel's histogram. That those will be different because there's different, you know, colors in the frame. But we want the left and right to line up for each channel. So, and as you move them, as you move the left, it kind of moves the right a little, and so on and so forth. So you do have to kind of tinker with it, but with a little practice, it only takes you know, a minute. So all right, so we slide that over, and then slide this guy something like that. Now we can already see this is getting a lot closer. Sure, it's washed out, but don't worry. We're not losing any range here. We're just kind of compressing it, and then we will decompress it. So the data is not lost. We're just, right now it looks washed out because we've shoved everything into the center 2 zones of the histogram. Okay, so at this point, now that we have the color channels neutralized, we want to double check our exposure a little bit for the sake of, hey, is this, you know, approximately where I want it? And, you know, usually the answer should be yes. If it's no, then you might have clipped too much somewhere in here. So yeah, this looks about right. Okay, so now the problem is we have the input channel, the input mapped to the output as 1-to-1, but we've shoved all the data into the center. So when we slide the output controls to line up with the data, the middle 2 zones of the histogram, like we did here, we find that it comes out much closer to what we're looking for But we're not done. Like we're gonna like adjust this. You know, this was just to get the basics in line. So now you'll see the curve looks much more natural. They are better centered. Okay, so now that we have that all lined up, what we can do is go back to looking at the whole image. And while the colors look about right, obviously there's some blowouts and things. So, you know, how do we fix that? So, I mean, now that we've opened it up, we can see, oh yeah, look, we're clearly clipping some of those highlights. We can bring that down if we want. So what I like to do is soften it up here. So allowing a little more range. Don't worry too much about contrast yet. So that gives us a little more working room here. So what we can do now is we can actually put some points here and soften things up. Don't win it. Let's just put a point there, and now we can pull that down. So something like that. So you can see we're pretty close. Okay, now that we have the basic normalizing color, we can tweak more if we want by going in here and like, hey, this red seems a little strong. Let's pull that, you know, a little to the right. And what else? Honestly, that looks pretty good to me. At this point, you can also choose to move the white balance warmer or cooler, but I wouldn't move it very far. Within a little adjustment, it works like you expect. If you go too far, these color channels won't move uniformly together. They will move in a biased way because there's so much shift. So you can move a little. If you want to make further color adjustments, instead, I would recommend you do it here. You know, this allows you to control the shadow end of the reds and the midtones and the highlight of the reds, and then same with the green and blue. Also, if you like, you can tune the actual output curve. So like, you know, this deals with highlights, this deals with shadows, and you can get really creative with this guy. I won't go into a lot of detail now, but the short version is, you know, like, hey, if I think there's a little bit of, you know, too much blue in here, I can see where that is on the histogram. If you keep your eye right here, you can see when I move the cursor over it, it tells me where that is. So I can put a point in there and a couple others to help keep it from moving around too much. And then I can pull that down just a hair, and you can see I'm actually taking the green out of that, taking the blue out of that tonal range. So we can get really creative and tune the image like as nice as you want. But this is close enough for me. I think editing beyond this point is a matter of taste, and taste is up to you. I'm just kind of showing you how it works, but you can see that it didn't take too long. It certainly took longer than Capture One's Convert Negative tool, but I think you'll agree it looks better. So let's see if we can now salvage Capture One's Convert Negative tool, and maybe it will take us less time than it took to do this. So yeah, sliding the white balance doesn't really do it for us. It's kind of green, so okay, what if we okay, that's there's maybe something in there. It's almost right. It's just not bad, but it's kind of not bad. It almost makes mine look kind of pale now, but yeah, there's a lot of blue in here. So you can use the same tricks to try to fix Capture One, right? You can, like, you know, that's the wrong end. you can like adjust the shadow and to pull some of those blues out of the low end. So this is a little better. And okay, it's better. It's still kind of yellow. Anyway, I'm not going to fuss with it too much. The point is, there are cases where Capture One's Convert Negative just doesn't nail it, and you can spend a lot of time tweaking it, but you're always going to be working off of their assumptions that you don't know what they did. Likewise, with a little bit of practice, you can do it yourself, know exactly what you did and where you need to adjust it, and you're going to come out really nice every time. So let's move on to, actually, I'm going to end this video, and if you want to see more examples, I'll put them in follow-up videos for the sake of keeping these short. Cool. So hopefully you'll take a look at the next one, because the next one is a real gotcha. I'll explain why in the next video.